so I just saw the Batman. Well, I didn't just see it. I saw this movie like a few weeks ago when it first came out. Whoop. I had a first recording of this movie, but it was way too short and I didn't get into too much detail on why I liked it so much. But on this video, I'm gonna put out some spoilers, probably in the end, because yeah, I want people to see this movie. Even though this movie has already made over $600 million already, I want people to still see this movie. I want them to experience full Batman that I experienced. I love this movie a lot, and I'll talk about it right now. This movie follows Batman, aka Bruce Wayne, in his second year of crime fighting. Yeah, not even his first year. This is his second year, so he's kind of experienced at this point. Wait, my mic is starting to sound like the Riddler. Whoops.
What is the price for your blind eye?
Batman already has a bond with Commissioner Gordon. Commissioner Gordon trusts him, even though he doesn't know who he is, really. He doesn't know he's famous billionaire Bruce Wayne. Yeah, at this point, everybody should know who Batman is. I mean, your grandma knows who Batman is. And this movie knows this. This movie doesn't start with Martha and Thomas Wayne getting murdered and little Bruce Wayne crying. We've seen that too much times already, so we don't need to see it again. This movie doesn't start with that, thank goodness. We don't need to know how Batman became Batman, because we already know from, I don't know, 5 movies. A lot of movies where you have to know what Batman's backstory is. Bat-story. This movie starts off like the comic book Long Halloween. I never read it, but people have been talking about it. But anyways, it starts off with people doing crime, and in the shadows, they're like in fear of this Batman, because every night, every time they do crime, they're looking into the shadows and are terrified because they're scared that the Batman will get to them. That's one thing that this movie gets right. This movie, out of every single movie, Batman movie at least, this movie, out of all the movies, make Batman scary. In every single Batman movie, he's either portrayed as like goofy, and yeah, his head couldn't turn for like I don't know how many movies. The Dark Knight was pretty much the first movie where he can first turn his head. The Batman Nolan movies were pretty much the first movies that took Batman seriously, but again, he kinda had that voice that everybody makes fun of. Even Will Arnett did the voice when he did Lego Batman. He did that deep growl Christian Bale Batman. That was hilarious.
I don't feel anything emotionally except for rage. 24/7, 365. At 1,000,000%.
Anyways, other than Batman being portrayed as scary, which is really great, criminals want to be scared of Batman. You want to fear Batman. You don't want to do crime because Batman is in the shadows. This is the first Batman movie where he's portrayed as 90% detective and 10% brooding celebrity man that still misses his parents because they're dead. He's able to beat up people, but at the same time, he's still learning, and that's pretty much what this movie is about. You get straight into the detective story of who is this Riddler and what does he want. I mean, if you know the Riddler, you already know that he's up to no good. Like, obviously, because he's a villain. Throughout most of this movie, you're just completely invested into this Batman detective story. Being year 2 of Batman is also great because he's experienced in 1 year, but he's not very experienced. Like, he has all the gadgets and gizmos to beat down every single bad guy. He has the cool Batman suit and everything to beat bad guys down. But occasionally, he would take a beating and take it because he's still a man. And he has some of the most iconic gadget that Batman has ever had, like the grappling hook, of course, even the automobiles he has, the Batmobile. When you see the Batmobile, it's so cool. The sound it makes when you hear it is like, it gave me chills when I heard it in the movie theater. But how is Robert Pattinson as Batman? Everybody is probably wondering. If people don't know, Robert Pattinson is probably one of my favorite actors working right now. Of course, he's in the occasional big budget blockbuster movie, like Harry Potter, and I think he did some other movie. I don't remember. But he's really grown as an actor, appearing in some of my favorite movies the past 10 10 years. Like, The Lighthouse is one of my favorite movies of 2019 when it came out. He was even great in High Life. He's great in a lot of movies. He's great in Good Time. Good Time is one of my favorite movies. If you haven't seen any of those and you just know him for just being in big budget blockbuster movies, then give them a chance because he really is great in all of those. He's a great versatile actor, and when he was cast to be Batman, I was 110% on board because yes, he is the perfect man to portray the Batman. And yeah, he's pretty much excellent in every single scene he's in. He's the best. The only thing that felt weird at first is that the way he acts as Batman isn't too different than the way he acts as Bruce Wayne. He's still a broody boy. He's still broody as Bruce Wayne and Batman. But as the movie went along, that kind of made sense. This is his second year and he isn't really an expert in hiding his emotions in both personas. If he feels broody as Batman 100% of the time, then he is broody as Bruce Wayne 100% of the time. I think one complaint that I have is Robert Pattinson's weird Peter Parker long emo hair that he had. And again, this is a younger Batman that we're watching, so I guess it makes sense. At least he's very hot. At least he's that. At least he's that. We have a hot Batman, yay. Hot Batman, hot pink, Doja Cat. Doja Cat made a reference to Batman in one of her songs. Doja Cat, Catwoman, great transition. Let's talk about Catwoman now.
The bat and the cat. It's got a nice ring.
Catwoman, aka Selena Kyle. They actually call her Selena Kyle a lot. I don't think they call her Catwoman at all. Selena Kyle is a great addition to the movie. She is probably like one of the big parts of the movie. She has a really big role to play in the movie. Bigger than I was actually anticipating. I thought she was like just gonna be in the sideline like they did with Anne Hathaway. When Anne Hathaway was Catwoman, remember that? She actually contributes in a very big way a lot to the story. Like, she becomes part of the investigation. One of her friends gets involved. You'll see what happens with that. But she's pretty much engaging every time she's on screen. She's like very grounded in a way. More grounded than Batman, surprisingly. She always has been like the sole opposite of Batman in that she's very poor. She only does crime for her financial needs. Like, she would just rob banks. Like, there's a very normal scene of her robbing a bank. Or not robbing a bank like in The Dark Knight. Like cracking a safe, like a cat burglar or something like that. She's even so poor she has a beanie as her cat ear mask.
Hey, number one, you got beanie.
It's not the leather mask that everybody is used to, but yeah, it makes sense for her because she's really poor and she has a lot of cats.
You got a lot of cats.
I have a thing about strays.
I don't have a transition for Penguin, but I'm just gonna talk about him because he's probably one of the highlights for most people when they see this movie. Whoever did the makeup job for Colin Farrell in the Batman probably should get an Oscar immediately because yeah, his makeup job is very, very, very good. Like, I didn't even know that was Colin Farrell when I saw this movie. I thought it was some other guy. I mean, I know Colin Farrell has been already casted for being in this movie, but he really did do a really good job at just becoming this character. I still can't believe it was Colin Farrell, honestly. Like, the way he talked, I never heard Colin Farrell talk like that ever. He has like a certain mannerism to him that's just for this character.
See him at the twins. Boy, I hear everything they say. Ain't you?
And yeah, apparently he's gonna have a HBO TV show, HBO Max TV show, like in the same vein as Peacemaker. He's gonna have a TV show just for this character. That's kind of a good point to make because yeah, he's not really the main villain in this movie. He's just a character that Batman breaks into their club to like investigate more stuff about him. Yeah, unfortunately, he's not really the essential villain per se. He's just a gangster. Which is, yeah, I think that's the best way to portray this character. In like other Batman stuff, he isn't really like a villain, well, except for Batman Returns. He's just a gangster man, and yeah, that's the best way to portray this character. The villain spot is taken by the Riddler. He is the main villain and he is the one that we're investigating throughout most of the movie actually. Paul Dano gives an excellent performance when portraying this character, both in mask and yeah, eventually he's out of mask and he's still crazy. If you've been watching him in other movies, yeah, he's been playing like crazy characters in like everything he's been in. Even Little Miss Sunshine, he had that really great freak out scene.
It's alright, hold on. The emergency is get him to pull over.
Unfortunately, in kind of a weird way, he's kind of like the Heath Ledger. He's kind of like the Heath Ledger. It's kind of like the Heath Ledger. He's kind of like the Heath Ledger Joker in the way that he like writes poems or riddles in this case. He recites riddles to Batman in the same way.
Take off his mask and turn himself in. Oh, and every day he doesn't, people will die. Starting tonight. I'm a man of my word.
He like constantly puts puzzles or traps or like things that Batman has to solve, like moral things that Batman has to solve. Kind of like the two boat scenes in Dark Knight, or kind of the same way. Like two groups of people are on boats and you have to save one of them. It's kind of the same way, because each of the puzzles has at least one person die, or one person is gonna die. But in this, his like traps are like very scary and very intense to watch. They're kind of like, in a way, Saw traps. Saw puzzles. Those are really, really cool to watch. And tension racking. Like, I was on the edge of my seat on every single scene of every single one of those scenes. So yeah, it was like, this movie is great because it's like almost 3 hours, but you're invested 100% of the way. Or at least I was invested 100% of the way. It's a really great Batman detective story, which is, I think this is the first movie that really portrayed Batman as mostly a detective, because that's what he is. And those are my general spoiler-free thoughts on this movie. If you already saw this movie and you want to continue, then continue. But if you didn't see this movie and you don't want to get spoiled on the moral and everything and the ending, skip to this time point. Time for spoilers!
I got you! I got you!
So throughout this movie, you slowly find out that the reason that the Riddler is doing all these things is because Thomas Wayne was bad. I think Thomas Wayne was like, he's like a bad influence, or so they said. The influence of the Wayne family and how that messed up everyone in Gotham City. That really awakened like all these crazy people. He went on this rant on how an orphan baby can die and no one cares. If Bruce Wayne's parents die, then everyone freaks out. It's that Joker scene.
One little old mare will die. Well, then everyone loses their minds.
Bruce Wayne finds out that his parents weren't completely saints when he asks about it from a character named Falcone. Falcone is played by Stanley Tucci from the Transformers movies. He said they were like part of some scandal or something. I don't really remember the general details. Again, I've seen this movie in a few weeks, so I don't remember. It was something bad or something. Riddler blew up Alfred earlier. That's important because when Bruce Wayne returns to Alfred and asks about the parents doing bad thing for Falcone, Alfred was like, no, your parents actually were not doing this bad thing or something. Falcone is a liar and he just said that to mess with you. And yeah, that was the end of that conflict. I think that was one of the few problems with the movie, that conflict between Bruce's perception of his parents not being like these saints. But yeah, when he asked about it with Falcone, and then it got immediately rebutted by Alfred. I know the movie's long, but that could have used a little bit more development, maybe. Like, that's kind of an interesting idea, not knowing that somebody that you thought was a saint really wasn't behind the scene. That was an interesting take. That was an interesting idea. But yeah, again, it wasn't really explored for too long. It was kind of brushed off like immediately. Anyways, back to Riddler and his plan. Batman. I like that Riddler was like a social media influencer. Like, he put his ideas out in the internet, and a few people that saw it followed him and started doing the same incel things that he was preaching. He says all these crazy things, and yeah, a bunch of people follow him. That's kind of a statement about like influence on the internet. What you say on the internet, whatever you say on the internet, people will follow if they agree with you. Also, he does this while being in the Riddler suit and everything. He does a voice. He hides his voice. He's smart enough to not let other people know who he really is, while also explaining how he really feels in the internet. He has all these elaborate plans. He keeps putting up all these riddles that are like easy to solve, but Batman and Commissioner Gordon have a hard time solving them. Some of them lead to things, others just lead to dead ends, which is kind of great because yeah, the Riddler's just messing with them throughout the movie. Like, haha, you thought it was this thing, but it was actually something really simple, you dummies. Also, I'll mention this really quickly. I love Batman's gadgets in this. Since it's year 2 Batman, he doesn't have like super well polished and like super technologically awesome weapons yet. He literally has to use eye contacts to like look through other people and like record whatever he sees. They even incorporate black eye makeup for the costume. Like, that's pretty great. There's that scene in Batman Forever. Keenan, what's his name? The Michael Keaton Batman has his mask on. He has the black makeup on, but when he takes off the mask, his black makeup comes off. So I'm glad they kept the black makeup. That's pretty cool. Anyways, his gadgets are pretty lame in the best way possible, other than the eye contacts. I actually think the eye contacts are pretty cool, but other than that, he has his bat symbol are actually knives. He like takes them out and he uses it to cut rope or tape. He uses it to cut things other than people. There's even a scene where he's on top of a roof and he has to glide down. He has to get into this huge squirrel suit and slowly put it on. It's like really huge and it doesn't look cool, but it's really cool that it doesn't look cool. But yeah, there's a scene where he like glides down and you expect him to like do a superhero pose when he goes on the ground.
Woo! Superhero landing!
But no, since this is a realistic Batman, he like tumbles on the ground and like crashes into like trash cans. It's really funny. There are moments of levity throughout the movie, not like too jarring to where it just turns into a flat out comedy, but like yeah, moments like where he crashes into the trash can, that was really that really did make me laugh. There was even a moment where Penguin was captured because one of the riddles was you have to catch a rat with wings. I think yeah, it was you have to catch the rat with wings. It's a slang for pigeon, but they thought the Riddler was talking about the penguin, but in reality they didn't know the penguin. It was a URL. It was a URL. The rat was the URL site. Whoops. Yeah, where they had to message the Riddler. Yeah, some of the riddles are like seem super complex, but are like, oh, you were being super simple this entire time, and we feel dumb for not realizing that. Also, I'm sorry if I'm getting all this information wrong, but I did see this movie a few weeks ago. This is all straight from my mind. But what I do remember is the extremely exciting climax and resolution, where yeah, Batman in investigating what the Riddler's plan was is pretty much too late. Like the dams, he explodes the dams of the city. The city is like getting flooded already. He goes to the auditorium because yeah, at the same time there's like an election happening. The whole city keeps flooding because water keeps running. Then during the election, the Riddler's followers are gonna assassinate some of the runners for mayor. And during the climax, there's that wonderful scene where Batman beats up one of the goons. They're like really close to saving everyone, and the goon like is on the floor. He's like passing out. He responds to Batman, "I am vengeance," because that's a quote that he said earlier in the movie, and I think he said that a lot while beating up people.
A
Batman hears this and is like completely shocked and scared because yeah, he realizes he was the sole cause of all this. The movie started with the politician nerd talking about how Gotham has risen in crime since Batman started being Batman. And yeah, Batman realizes what he has done, and in a ditch to reclaim his name and everything, he goes down to the flooded waters and saves everyone in the auditorium. He becomes the hero that Gotham needed, that probably doesn't deserve. He becomes the hero that Gotham needs but doesn't deserve. That's a quote from The Dark Knight.
Because he's the hero Gotham deserves, but not the one it needs right now.
Yeah, in this movie, he learns that he has to be, in order to bring hope and peacefulness to the city, he has to be the symbol of hope that Gotham needs. He cannot be beating around people and killing them. Not killing them, but like beating them without thinking. His actions were really good because he stopped being criminals. But in retrospect, he is influencing every single criminal in being violent. He is inducing violence by being violent. If incels see you do a bad thing, they'll want to follow and do that same thing again, no matter what the intentions, good or bad, are, which is the message and moral of the story that I came out with this movie. Your actions have consequences. When will you learn that your actions have consequences? That's a much more different message that we've gotten in like any Batman media. Influences will seed out bad things. Well, yeah, a lot of the messages and philosophy things, ideas come from the villains of all the Christopher Nolan movies. We haven't really gotten anything retrospective to counterfeit Batman. Now we have that. We see how his actions to everyone around him, not just the criminals to Gotham, but everyone in Gotham, affects everyone in how he does his work, how everyone perceives him, what they get out of his actions and everything. That's a bigger message than chaos bad and bad is bad and good is good. It's like your actions kind of circle around what you do in everyday life, I think. Overall, I 100% loved this movie. I was invested 100% through. I was investigated 100% through. No, wait. I guess that's appropriate because he is investigating a murder. He is investigating the Riddler throughout this entire movie. So yeah, I guess I was also investigating with Batman in this movie. I was invested in his investigation. That's what I'll say. For almost 3-hour long movie, this movie didn't feel that long. It felt like 2 hours. I'll mention this right before I end this, but the look of the movie is absolutely gorgeous. This is probably one of the best looking Batman movies ever, probably. It mixes in a blend of realism and unrealism. I mean, it's realistic, but it also has a gothic flair to it. Even Bruce Wayne's house is no longer just a house. It looks like the Addams Family house. It looks pretty cool. Or I should say mansion. Bruce Wayne lives in a mansion. Whoops. Overall, I really enjoyed this movie. I would highly recommend it. If you haven't even watched it, why haven't you watched it? It's Batman. I would probably give this movie a great 8 out of 10 because, I don't know, it could have been shorter. I don't know what I would have cut out of this movie, but people might complain it might be too long. And yeah, some of the characters aren't developed as much as I wanted to, but that's kind of a small complaint. That's why it's an 8. Okay, bye. Bye-bye.
Something's in my ass. Yeah.